Okay, this is lesson 2-5, multiplying and dividing rational expressions. I'm going to ask Mrs. Harris to turn off the video right now, or to pause the video while you guys write down this information. Okay, so we want to be able to multiply and divide rational expressions. Here are the steps. We're going to start with multiplying rational expressions. Here are the steps for multiplying rational expressions. Number 1, factor completely. Number 2, cancel the common factors. It's pretty simple. If you had something like 4/9 times 12 24ths, you could factor these completely. For example, 4 can be 2 times 2. 12 can be 2 times 2 times 3. 9 can be 3 times 3. And 24, let's see, that breaks down to 2 times 12, 3 times 4, 2 times 2. So 3 factors of 2, 2 times 2 times 2, and a factor of 3. So if you were multiplying these two together, you could do it this way. And so any factor on top divided by a factor on the bottom that's common to it makes 1. So 3 divided by 3 makes 1. We don't necessarily have to put the 1 there. This 2 will go into that 2 once, this 2 into that 2 once, and this 2 into that 2 once. And so we have on the top a factor of 2 left, and 3 times 3 is 9 on the bottom, and so that would make 2 9ths. Well, that's an example with real numbers. We are going to do that with rational expressions. So here's the first problem on the assignment. Mrs. Harris, if you want to turn this off or pause it for a second and pass out the first assignment. This is the first problem on there. Okay, here we go. We are going to do the same thing right here. 8 breaks down to 2 times 4, and 4 breaks down to 2 times 2. So we are going to break 8 down to 2 times 2 times 2. X squared is equal to x times x. And then we have a factor of 3 on the top. And notice there are no addition or subtraction signs. No addition and subtraction signs means that any factor on the top can cancel with any factor on the bottom if they're common factors. Y squared breaks down to y times y. So we're just going to put it all over one fraction bar since we can just multiply them all together. 9 breaks down to 3 times 3. And then we have a factor of y, factor of 2, and we have 5 factors of x. So once again, a factor on the top that's the same as a factor on the bottom will cancel. Like this 2 will cancel with this 2. This 3 will cancel with this 3. This y will cancel with this y. And these 2 x's on the top will cancel with 2 x's on the bottom. And I think we've exhausted all of our common factors that we can cancel. And so on the top, we're left with 2 times y, which is 4y. On the bottom, we're left with 3 times x times x times x, which is 3x cubed. And that would be our answer. And it's completely simplified. We've multiplied, and then we simplified it after canceling those factors. So, Mrs. Harris, if you want to pause it for a second, do number 1 if you haven't done it yet, and do number 2 together. Work as partners on this. And pause it until you need to start it again to be ready to do number 3. Okay. We're going to talk about steps to dividing rational expressions. There's only one difference. The first thing you do is take the reciprocal of the second fraction and change the problem to, oh, that's supposed to say multiply. made a mistake. So I'll show you that in a second. Then factor completely, then cancel the common factors. So if we need to pause it for a second, do so, and then start it when you're ready. Okay, problem number 3 on your assignment. Just watch it first, and then you guys can pause it and write it down. First of all, the divide right here in the middle, we're going to change that to a times. The way we're going to do that is we are going to take the reciprocal of the second fraction. So we have the first fraction, 4x cubed, divided by y to the 4th, times, and we can do that, x squared y to the 4th over negative 2. So we change it to a multiplication problem by taking the reciprocal of that second fraction. And then this is the same as the last problems, problems number 1 and 2. So here we go. We're going to take the factors. Negative 4 can be written as negative 2 times positive 2, because negative 2 times positive 2 is a negative 4. X cubed can be written, and I'm going to actually write these down below so there's not enough room. Negative 2 times positive 2, x cubed as x times x times x. Another x squared, which can be written as x times x. And a y to the 4th, which is y times y times y times y. Now, you guys can find a more efficient way to do this after you get the hang of it, but y to the 4th makes y times y times y times y. I'm trying to break it down for anybody who just needs to understand how to cancel these factors. All right. Now, we can cancel common factors again. These 4 y's will cancel with these 4 y's over here. That was pretty simple. We could have done that from the start by canceling that y to the 4th with that y to the 4th. And this negative 2 will cancel with that negative 2. So we have a 1 left on the bottom, but when we're dividing by 1, the number is just itself. And so we have 2 times x to the 5th on the top divided by 1 would just be 2x to the 5th. And so there's our answer. Remember that if everything cancels out on the top, though, you still have a 1 on top. Okay, you can go ahead and pause it, and then you can go to do problem number 4 together in pairs. And after you've done that in pairs, you can start it again. Everybody can check to see if you got the right answer. And feel free, if some of you want to get up here and show how you did problems like 2 and 4 and so forth, you can do that. Okay, here we go. Problem number 5. Problem number 5 is a little bit different. You have some minuses in there. You could also have some pluses in some of these, but we are going to factor each top and each bottom, the numerator of each fraction, the denominator of each fraction, completely. I'm going to start with the 3x minus 9 up in the top right. I notice that it has a greatest common factor of 3, so I'm going to factor out a 3. If I do that, that leaves me with x minus 3 inside the parentheses. I notice on the bottom right, it has a common factor of 2. If I factor out a 2, I get x minus 8 inside the parentheses. On the bottom left, I notice that I can take out a common factor, a greatest common factor of 6. And if I do so, that leaves me with x minus 3. Now that 8 minus x seems like it's out of place, but it's kind of like x minus 8. I'm going to show you a little trick right here. If we factor out a negative 1, the 8 becomes negative, and the negative x becomes positive, and we can then switch them around and write negative 1 times x minus 8. It's a little trick in algebra that we're going to use quite a bit this year, actually, especially when we get to trigonometry. So what cancels out? Well, I can only cancel out factors. That's things multiplied by something else. So x minus 3's cancel out, and the x minus 8's cancel out. And also, this 6 right here can be written as 2 times 3, and those 3's will cancel out. So on the top, all I have left is that negative 1, and on the bottom I have a 2 times 2, which is 4. And that would be my answer. So you can pause that and look at that for a little bit, and also pause it so that you can do problem number 6 right now. Okay, hopefully you guys are helping each other do the even problems. I'm doing some of the odd problems. Okay, we're looking at number 7. Notice the x plus 2 is already factored completely. The x minus 6 is factored completely. The 3x squared, you could write it as 3 times x, but the x times x isn't going to help you in this case right here. But we're going to rewrite the bottom right fraction. We can factor that trinomial. Remember, we're looking for two numbers we can times together and get this 4 at the end. And so when we add the numbers together, we get 4. I think most of you guys know what that factors to be. X plus 2 times x plus 2. Because 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 plus 2 is 4, right? So that's what, we've completely factored it now. Now, we just need to cancel out the x plus 2's. One on the top and one on the bottom. Nothing else will cancel out. I know it's tempting for some of us to think that this 6 and that 3 can cancel somehow, and this x by the minus 6 can cancel with that x squared, but order of operations says that we have to do the subtraction x minus 6 first before we can divide. So my answer ends up being 3x squared over x minus 6 times x plus 2, and you can leave this factored. You don't have to multiply the denominators together. Don't worry about multiplying x minus 6 times x plus 2. This is the sufficient answer, and I'll do that on the test as well. So pause it. Do problem number 8 together. See if you can get that. Okay, problem number 9. We have 4 trinomials we need to factor right here. If you guys want to try this first and have Mrs. Harris pause it while you factor all 4 of those trinomials and see if you can do that, that would be awesome, because I think it would help you understand. I'm going to go ahead and teach it. Otherwise, you can look at the video afterwards if you want. So I notice that each of these is actually a factorable trinomial. So this first top trinomial, I'm looking for 2 numbers together that I can times together and get negative 6, add together and get 1. Remember, there's a 1 there. I know that x minus 3 times x plus 2 will work for that, because 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, and 2 plus negative 3 is, oh wait, that's the other way around. It's x plus 3, and that's a minus 2, because we want it to be a positive 1x up there. Okay, looking for 2 numbers I can times together and get 4, add together and get 5. That would be x plus 4 times x plus 1. 1 times 4 is 4, and 1 plus 4 is 5. Okay, over here, I know the only way I'm going to get this 3x squared is if I times a 3x times an x, so I can put those in there. I also know to get 8, I can go 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. Well, if I'm looking at this right here, I can see if I times this 3 by the 4, that's going to give me 12. If I times this 1 by the 2, that's going to give me 2. And if I add 12 and 2 together, I get the middle term 14. So I'm going to times 3 by 4, which means 4 has to go in the opposite binomial as the 3x, as well as this 2 is going to be times by the 1x, so it has to go in the opposite binomial, so the plus 2 goes here. So I have 3x plus 2 times x plus 4. Okay, the last trinomial. I know the only way to get 2x squared is 2x times x. And the only way to get 3 is 1 times 3. Well, my middle number is 7. I'm guessing I'm going to have to times the 2 by the 3, because 2x times 3 is 6x. That would leave me with 1 times 1x would be 1x. Add those together and I get the middle term, 7x. So now we have completely factored this, and all we have to do is look for factors that are same on the top and bottom. I can see the x plus 3's will cancel out. I can see that the x plus 4s will cancel out. And it looks like that's it. So my answer is x minus 2 times 3x plus 2 on the top. Remember, I'm not going to require you to multiply those back together. X plus 1 times 2x plus 1 on the bottom. That is completely factored and simplified. Go ahead and pause it and do number 10. And here is problem 11. This is a division problem. This is the last one I'm going to do with you, and the rest are going to be for homework. I notice that 4x minus 24 has a common factor of 4. So I'm going to take out a greatest common factor of 4, and that leaves me with x minus 6. I know that x squared minus 6x plus 5 factors to be x minus 5 times x minus 1. Because negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5, and negative 5 plus negative 1 is negative 6. I'm going to change this to times. And remember, I'm going to put that on the top and the top one on the bottom. And when I do that, that means I'm going to take this x squared minus 8x plus 15 and put those two factors on the top right here. I'm looking at x minus 3 times x minus 5, because I know that negative 3 times a negative 5 is a positive 15. Negative 3 plus a negative 5 is a negative 8. And then on the bottom, I put what's up on the top. I can factor out a 6 or a negative 6. I'm going to factor out a negative 6. That doesn't factor into two binomials. That factors the greatest common factor. So I'm going to take out a negative 6. That's going to change it to a positive x minus 36. If I multiplied that back through there, that negative 6 back through, I would get negative 6x plus 36. So cancel out common factors. I wrote that as 36. I'm sure you guys are all laughing at me right now. X minus 6. All right. Common factors that we can cancel out. There's an x minus 6 here and an x minus 6 there, and x minus 5 on the bottom, x minus 5 on the top. Remember, when you're just dividing x minus 5 by x minus 5, and that gives you 1. I notice 4 can be broken down to 2 times 2, and negative 6 can be broken down to negative 2 times 3. I can cancel a pair of 2's. That's still going to be a negative 1 right there for that. That negative will still be there. So I have a 2 times x minus 3 left on the top, and a 3 times x minus 1 on the bottom. And that should be my answer. All right, that concludes the lesson. The rest is homework. Good luck with the homework, and help each other out. And remember, you have the daily quiz to take real soon here.